All right, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to today's CI Tools webinar. My name is Josh Osborne and I'm the Product Manager for the CI Tools here at Central Innovation. And this is a weekly webinar that we run where we talk about new features in the CI Tools or old features that you might not have known about. Sometimes we talk about an introduction to certain tools starting from scratch. Or we talk about upcoming updates and that sort of thing. This week we're going to be looking at a couple of things to do with the Windows and Doors tool. We're just going to cover off sort of a couple of areas of the tool that maybe you don't know about or just haven't spent a lot of time with that might do some things that will be useful to you. So we're going to look at just a couple of things in the Windows and Doors that might come in useful. If you have any questions as we go though, please enter those in the chat or the comments panel as we go, and I will try to check on those at about halfway through, see if anybody's got any questions that I can answer as we go on. And if you think of anything after today's session that you want to get answered, then you can contact our support team and they'll be able to help you out there. Let me just quit out these two while I'm remembering. I'm going to be working in ArchiCAD 27 today, but all of the stuff that you're going to see today also applies to ArchiCAD 26 as well as of recent updates. So if you're using one of those two versions, everything we're looking at today is going to apply in both of those cases. But yeah, let's get started. I'm just using a different computer than usual, so I'm just going to check that I don't have anyone telling me that nothing is working. Briefly. Okay, no one's saying nothing is working, so that's a great start. So I'll get underway. But yeah, if you have any questions, in particular, if you have any questions about doors and windows that I can help with, then enter those in the comments or the chat there, and I'll see if I can cover those off today. We are just going to be looking at sort of a scattering of different things. So if you have anything that's been nagging at you for a while or something, let me know. All right. So the first thing I want to look at with the Windows and Doors is something in the Door tool. And let's get rid of this window over here so that we have a nice spot to put this. And we're going to have a look at the Door tool, and what I want to look at with this one is the sizing of the Door tool in particular. So we're just going to reset to our default settings here. So we've got our door. So this is the regular door element rather than the exterior door element. And what I want to look at is this key dimensions panel here, in particular this combo box down at the bottom here. This was added a couple of versions ago. But it's not something that a lot of people maybe noticed at the time. We did talk about it a bit during demos and stuff like that, but often people don't always hear about everything that comes up. So I want to look at how that works to start with. So I'm just going to go in and place a door in this wall here to start with. And then let's have a look at that in 3D. Show my key. Okay, so there's our door, very fine looking door there. And what we're going to do is we're going to select our door and stretch it. So we're just going to change that. Whoops, that's not a stretch. This one here. So we're going to stretch it up like this, and you'll see that when I do the stretch, the door itself, as in the door panel, we're hitting a different walls covering there, but that's okay. The actual door panel has not changed in height, as you can see. So essentially, if you had been expecting it to change height, you would probably be annoyed right now because that is not, in fact, what it does. What it does is, as you can see, it adds an overlight in by default. This is what we talked to a couple of customers at the time, and they said that this is what they would want it to do generally. I don't know if it's what everyone wants to do though, but you can change the preference for what happens when you do this in the settings for the tool. So that's what I wanted to look at today. So by default, when you stretch the height of your door, it will insert an overlight and then stretch that overlight depending on how much extra space you give it. But if we go back to our originally sized door and jump into those, whoops, we've got the covering selected as well. That's not ideal. Okay, select just our door, go back into the key dimensions here, and you can see we've got component heights set by priority. Basically, this just means that the heights will be set out based on the way that we have it set up to do it, but we can override that, and there's a couple of options. So starting with the top, we've got edit overlight height G only. So if I do this one and go through and do that resize again, whoops. If I can get the right node, I'll do that resize again. Come on. There you go. Okay, we'll resize it up to here. And this one should give us the overlight again. So this is essentially the same as the priority order that we had selected before. So it is editing the overlight height. If you already had an overlight and you resize, it will just make the overlight larger as well. And if we squish this back down, is it that node? We squish this bit down, you can actually see in the preview here, because we've told it to only change the overlight height, that's all it will ever do. So if I come all the way down to here, it's not going to allow the leaf to get any smaller. So if we had the default setting, this would start making the leaf smaller as well, because it does it by priority, but instead we have it set to only modify the overlight and nothing else. So it will never ever touch the leaf height of this door if we modify the height. So if that's something you want, essentially you're locking your leaf heights, this will give you that option. All right, let's go back to the default again, default height rather, this one here, and we'll go to the next option. So that was editing the overlight height only. Now we can change the head gap H only. Normally this is 0, so this gap between the head and the leaf here. So let's go in and do our resize again, up to about here. Okay, and we get a similar-ish looking result, except that this is not an overlight anymore, it is a gap. So it is a big hole. So we're editing the height difference between the head and the actual leaf. So we're leaving a gap in here. And this works the same way that the overlight one did in terms of the fact that it will never touch the leaf height. You can see as soon as I hit the bottom of the space that's allowed by this head height, it stops allowing me to do anything. So if I go all the way down here, it's going to ignore all of that and just go to the top of the leaf. So we're locking our leaf heights still at this point. All right, let's go back again and go to the next setting. So this one here is to edit the leaf height only. So if when you stretched your door upwards, you expected it to stretch the leaf and not insert any sort of shenanigans into your project, that's exactly what this setting will do. So it has increased the height of the leaf and obviously the overall height of the door, but nothing else. It hasn't created overlights, it hasn't changed the gap between the head and the leaf height or anything like that. It's just increased the leaf height and nothing else. And then we can also look at K as well, which is to adjust the threshold height. So if we go back to default again, we choose the last option on key dimensions. So threshold height K, we're going to stretch again. Stretch them up to here. You can already see in the preview, it's just stretching out that threshold height. So you can see now we have the threshold big gap here, similar to what we had with the head option. So we've just got a big hole in our wall there. You can see the framing is going down to the bottom, and the sill would still be there if we had one, but the actual leaf height is again being untouched entirely. So the only one of these options that will ever touch the leaf height is if you choose the option to edit the leaf height, or obviously if you manually edit the leaf height using the control for it, which is J on the key dimensions here. So essentially what you can do is you can sort of lock the head height and have just the thing that you want to adjust be the thing that gets modified. So that can be a handy thing for when you're doing that, but also just if you have resized one of your things, found that it put in a head height and started typing out a very angry letter to us about it, please by all means send us the angry letter anyway, because I would love to hear how you would expect it to work by default. But this is essentially why it is doing that, and it will let you configure it to be whatever you want. If you, for some reason, really hate the default setting, you can obviously save your own favorite default setting where it's not the one that you don't want, and it's whatever it is that you would expect it to do. Maybe you always would want it to do a gap. Set it to that and set your favorite to be that. All right, I'm just going to quickly check for questions and then we will continue on. Let me just go paused. Okay, and what have we got? Okay, so we have one question where someone was saying in the schedule, can you filter elements based on the master ID via the hotlinks? So as you might have seen in the schedule settings, you can display the master ID in the schedules, but you can't actually filter by the master ID, no. This is a request that we've had a couple of months ago. I think it might actually even have been by you in a support ticket previously. So it is on our list of things to do, but at the moment, no. You can display the master ID, but you can't filter by the master ID currently. But yes, I will add an additional vote to that request in our database. The second one is, so talking about that height resizing thing, it should always be leaf height, because you don't often want to do other types of doors. Yeah, that's one of the things that I've heard from people. We have had multiple people tell us multiple different things that they would expect it to always do by default. That's why it has the options there at the moment. But if we hear from enough people on it should always be the leaf height, then we may just change the default to be the leaf height option. But yeah, we have had several people tell us that it should default to creating an overlight when they do that as well. So it's a little bit hard to tell what the consensus is at this stage. But yeah, we'll keep talking to people about that and possibly change the default setting, maybe for the next version or something like that. So thanks for that. All right, what I will do next is I will go back to ArchiCAD, and for doors and windows, we are going to have a look at dealing with windows and doors meeting in corners. So this may or may not be something that you would ever want to do or have ever tried to do. But yeah, we're going to look at how you can make them meet up in the corner nicely, various options for the way that works and that sort of thing. I'll be doing it with a probably a big bifold is what we'll create on this one, and we'll get it to meet up in the corner. So I think I already have some here, so I'm just going to delete these and we'll draw them up again. So I'll grab this one and this one here. And we're just going to get two doors that will meet up in this corner here. So most of the basics we won't get into detail on. Let me just reset that to default. So we'll leave this as is. We will make our door types be bifolds, and let's put in, I don't know, 3 leaves. That looks fine. And then we'll set the door types to be something with glass in them, so they look decent. There we go. nice paddle down the bottom, why not? Alright, so that's our door, and we're going to get the two of this door to meet up in our corner there. And that's stacking that way. Cool, and then this one here. Oops, I selected my roof covering somehow. Okay, so I'm just going to draw them into kind of in the middle of the walls to begin with, and we're going to move them into place. So to start with, we will get these two looking like this. Show my key. So we'll get these two doors stuck on each end like this, as you pretty much might expect. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring them into the corners and then make them clean up the way that we want them to, and look into a couple of different options about how the cleanup will work. So let's grab this door up here first, and we will drag the node for it right into the corner. There we go, and then we'll do the same with this one. Alright, and then we'll see how that looks in 3D. Alright, so we have the two doors meeting up in the corner. We do have a bit of a problem here. You can see it's kind of mashed together in the corner there, which isn't ideal, and the leaves are sort of running over top of each other and that sort of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up these doors so that we can see a bit better of what's going on. So I'll jump into my settings for that. Where do we do that again? Model display, I believe. 3D views. Let's open it by 30 degrees. Cool, and this one as well. Actually, I should have selected both of them at once. So I'll remember that for next time. Set this one to 30 degrees as well. Okay. Okay, now we have a better view of our corner mess here. So we've got two bits of frame that are sitting on top of each other. So that's what we want to get rid of. So the way that we do that is using the join adjacency setting, which is under shape in the settings. So if I go into shape here, you'll see join adjacent settings here. And we want to set the side that is at the end to not have a frame on it. So let's guess that I always guess it's wrong first time, but here we go. Let's say that it's the right frame. So let's go glass joint. Ah, it is right. So we've got it set to glass joint, and it's a 45-degree mitre on the glass, which we don't have any glass there, so who cares, but the frame will mitre 45 degrees, which is good. So we'll hit OK on that one. And again, I should have done it with both at the same time, but let's go and do that now. So again, up to shape, and then we'll set our right frame to glass joint. Hit OK. There we go. So no more framing. However, we do have a lovely piece of weatherboard running all the way down there, and that's just because they don't actually meet anymore because we've turned the frames off on the end, and the frames was what we were meeting up before. So let's go back in here. There's the door. Okay. Drag that one back into place, and then this one as well. All right, now we still have a little bit of something going on there. Because they're not quite meeting, it looks like. So let's just get them to extend a little bit. Okay, not what I was expecting. And let's also tell these wall coverings not to go there, so tell them to ignore the ends. There we go. So that looks a bit more sensible. Why am I still seeing a bit of wall there? Really should have tested this before I showed it. Huh? Sorry, everyone. Go back here. Okay. That looks better. There. Okay. That should give us what we want now. So they just still weren't quite drawn into the corner because there was a bit of margin overlapping there. So what I did with the coverings just before, and generally you won't need to do this, but if you do have cases where the coverings are where windows or doors are hitting the edge of the wall, it can sometimes make the covering appear in places where it shouldn't. And so what you can do is change this value here of where it ignores the shape at the ends of walls, because it will always, unless you set it to 0, it'll always ignore a certain part at the edge of a wall, basically to make it stop causing weird problems. And so you can adjust that value sometimes if you're having problems there. In this case, you don't need to do that. The only reason I did it was because I didn't realize that my doors weren't quite meeting properly in the corner, but they do now. So we can see those are looking pretty good in 3D now. We're not seeing any of our wall or our covering here anymore, and the doors are looking pretty good. If we go in here, we can see the hotspots that we've got going on as well. So here is our end of our joint there, and then the other one meets it coming in from the other way, which is good. So what we can do, which you also would have seen before as well, is that we can choose this option to extend the frame if we need to as well. And so this can be useful where your frame is not meeting in the way that you want it to. I don't have a frame at the bottom, so we won't look at that one. But if we come up here, we should be able to see that. So we can see our two frames are mitering pretty nicely there at the moment. But if we come in here and tell that to extend in some way, we can see what that will do. So we'll extend that by 50 mil. And you can see that these nodes are being mitered off here. So because it's intersecting with the other piece, you don't see it anyway. But what we can go is we can go backwards if we need to as well. So if I come in here and I go minus 50, that should do that. Actually, let's make it easier to see. Okay, not going my way today. So the problem that I'm having here is that because the windows are joining, it is trying to clean them up nicely, and it keeps on doing it, even though I'm trying to break it. But essentially, what we can do is, if you have doors that aren't meeting in the corner because maybe they're different widths to the actual width of your wall and that sort of thing, you essentially need to fudge the sizing of the frame, and that's what this value here will do for you, is it'll allow you to say, actually, it needs to go a bit further before it'll hit the thing that it's supposed to be mitering. It's not doing it for me because I haven't set up the door in a way that it needs to do that, but that is what you can do in those corners there. And then to deal with the last thing, where we had them overlapping when they were touching, we can essentially just make one of them not quite open all of the way out. So if we go back into model view, we can set this to say 1 degree open. You'll see that kind of mash in the corner there. So what we can do is, there's a couple of different ways you could do this depending on how you wanted to model everything. But one way that you could do it would be to pull back this here by about the width, and then run that extension out by the amount that it needs to come back across. So this should work this time, hopefully. I don't know how wide that piece is actually. It's probably 90. Okay, again, it's not going to play the game for me. My apologies. I will show this properly next time, but essentially what you want to do is you want to pull one back a little bit so that they can both be closed without the ends sitting on top of each other like that. But yes, the key thing that I wanted to show was the join adjacency setting here, so that we can make sure that they join up nicely in the corners. Obviously, the other option that we had in there as well was for the corner post. So if you don't want it to have nothing in the corner, you can have corner posts showing there as well. So we can choose that option. So you don't get your full frame, but you do get a post showing in the corner instead. That can be something you want to do in some cases as well. But yeah, thanks for your patience, everyone. Sorry about the technical difficulties there. Yes, I should have been using MVOs for opening the doors in 3D. Thank you for that. So yes, so next time I will I'll finish up by creating an actual better demo of that corner intersection. But if anyone else has any other questions that you want to see covered off here, we can look at those. We'll look at the doors and windows intersection thing a little bit more. We might look at some schedule things as well to do with windows and doors, particularly to do with the calculated areas and that sort of thing. I've had a few questions about that recently, so that might be good, and maybe we can tie that in with the, what are they called? The light and ventilation calculation table that's in the select library. We can tie that in as well. But if you have any suggestions for things you'd like to see covered, let me know by emailing support or something like that, and see what we can do there. And I forget what the other thing was that I was going to mention. Oh yes, we may start also looking at ArchiCAD 28 as well. Not sure if anyone here is in the technical preview for ArchiCAD 28. We may start moving into using that in an upcoming webinar at some point as well. There's not really anything that we need to cover off to begin with, but we'll look at how to deal with migrating keynotes and that sort of thing possibly as well. And yes, thank you again for the reminder. I will get on to IT again about fixing up the stream quality. Thanks for that. But thanks for your time, everyone. Catch you next week, and